toxic masculinity.
Officer Sicknick's mother speaks out. He wasn't hit on the head.
Yeah. So this is kind of an older story. It's about a week old, maybe something like that. But now Sicknick's mother is actually speaking out about this. Sicknick was the officer who died following the Capitol protest. And everyone on all the news networks, CNN, New York Times, everybody was like, this was a deadly insurrection. This is a deadly armed insurrection. Never mind that nobody killed anybody. Never mind that nobody was actually armed. That's irrelevant. It was a deadly armed insurrection. And the only case that they used really to establish that the protesters were murderous was this guy, Sicknick, this police officer. But so they were saying that he was hit in the head with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of these networks were saying things like he was beaten with a fire extinguisher.
But there was a video footage.
There was a video of officers getting hit in the head with a fire extinguisher, but they didn't even move. I mean, that certainly wasn't the Sicknick accusation, what happened in that video.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually speculated in a video in which I spoke about this that this was a lie. I did not believe for a second that Sicknick was beaten with a fire extinguisher. In fact, I wasn't even sure that he was.
What do you think? What do you think happened? Why he
Well,
died?
now we know. Well, at least we don't know exactly what happened, but we know that he wasn't killed by protesters in any way whatsoever. Like, that's not even a question anymore. So even CNN came out with a report recently where they said, actually, that may not be true because there doesn't seem to be any evidence that Sicknick was killed, via blunt force trauma or anything else like that.
One person was killed. Is that woman who got shot?
Of course, there was one death, of the protesters.
Yeah, during protests.
Sure, and they say that it was a Capitol police officer that shot her. I think that person should be looked at and investigated. But this Sicknick thing, turns out that the media's been lying to us all along. And shocking, I know. But have they released retractions? Not that I've seen. CNN reported it. But I guess today it was reported that this Sicknick's mother... Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay. So this is a story here from Epoch Times. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick's mother says he wasn't hit in the head on January 6th. The mother of the police officer said her son was not beaten with a fire extinguisher by a mob. Sorry, I can't read it with these on January 6th, saying he likely suffered a stroke instead, refuting reports from the New York Times and other outlets claiming otherwise. He wasn't hit on the head. No, we think he had a stroke, but we don't know anything for sure, Gladys Sicknick told the Daily Mail in an exclusive interview on February 22nd. We'd love to know what happened. New York Times, CNN, and NBC updated their reports weeks after the January 6th breach to assert that Sicknick was not killed by a fire extinguisher. Okay, so I guess they did update the reports, but I'm not sure they've actually published any kind of retraction or anything like that. I know CNN did talk about it in one article. Originally, the New York Times reported, based on anonymous sources, that Sicknick was beaten to death. So they did update. It looks like, according to the New York Times update in February, new information has emerged regarding the death of the Capitol. So, okay, look, the truth is I don't really even care if they update their information on their sites or their channels, because people don't really pay attention to the updates. People pay attention to
the first news that came out.
That's right, the initial story.
Yeah, the initial story.
They tend to pay attention.
Thanks for increasing my vocabulary.
The initial story. The initial story is what a lot of people pay attention to. If you talk to people now about, in fact, I was talking to people, I think I mentioned this in an earlier show. I was having a conversation with one of AOC's people, one of the people that got her into office. And he brought this up. I think it was like 2 days ago. Brought this up and said, this was a violent insurrection. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Who was violent?
Antifa was violent.
Well, you keep asserting that there were a lot of Antifa there.
Yeah.
I've looked into it. There certainly were some people that were, you can affiliate, you could say they were affiliated.
Well, some people, but they, for some reason, they all were in the front of the line. Breaking windows, breaking doors.
Well, I think there were probably some, but there were a lot of conservatives, people in, like, the Proud Boys and different other groups, who were there trying to break down the barriers, trying to get in. There were some more aggressive Trump supporters. So I don't think we can just deflect all of the attention and say it's all Antifa. The thing that I'm more concerned about is how they are characterizing people on the right. Like this girl, Ashley Babbitt, that was killed. She certainly wasn't a violent person. She wasn't going there to kill anybody. And yet she was murdered. She was shot. And there's no accountability for that. They're just like, oh, self-defense. No big deal. She was trying to crawl through a window. It's perfectly acceptable for us to shoot her and kill her. It's ridiculous. So I'm not going to claim that there was, a ton of Antifa there. Something that I found curious about that incident is that there were no Antifa counter-protesters. There were no Black Lives Matter counter-protesters.
All dressed up. I mean, if you look at lots of videos, I saw lots of videos, and Trump supporters were dressed in all black and was wearing red hat, like a brand new MAGA hats. And there was
Blair, I'm not saying that there weren't Antifa there or Black Lives Matter there.
I think there were more than you think.
Oh no, I know there were, because there were. I've seen videos of people shouting, "These people are Antifa."
Yeah.
And all this kind of stuff. And people seem to know the layout of the Capitol building and were instructing people where to go and stuff like that. So some of this planned stuff, I've seen videos of Antifa going around the Capitol, breaking in, doing all that stuff. I've seen this, so I know they were there. But it wasn't just Antifa. I mean, there were definitely some conservatives there busting down barriers and trying to get in.
Maybe.
I don't know what the percentage of conservatives are. The only problem that we have discussing this really is because nobody's investigating anyone on the left that was there. Any Antifa people, any Black Lives Matter people. You don't have anybody investigating that side of it. So we don't know the extent of that. But they're investigating every single conservative that was there. They're arresting people. They're charging them. They're prosecuting them. So we know about all the conservatives. We don't know about all the leftists. They were arresting
people who just came from the DC the same day, on 6th or 7th. They were arresting people in the airport who just flew. Is it how?
I don't know if that's true.
That's true. Yeah, I saw the video.
You have to send me an article of that.
Arresting person just because they came from DC the
and
same
they thought
day,
they were going to go to the protest or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to have to send me that article.
I'll try to find that.
All right, let's move on to the. Well, okay. Let me just finish up with this. The fact that this lie was spread about Sicknick being killed by the protesters. This is the main problem, right? Because a lot of the accusations made about Donald Trump, a lot of the really aggressive response to the protest by the FBI, by Democrats in Washington, D.C., this was all predicated on this idea that the protesters were violent and they were trying to cause an insurrection. They were insurrectionists. This is a lie. Okay, this is not true. I knew this was a lie from the beginning. I reported on it very early. I was like, there's no way this guy was murdered by protesters. And now it comes out that, in fact, he was not murdered by protesters, and then that was all a lie. So my speculation about all the rest of it being a lie, if you go back and you watch my old video on this, it's pretty comprehensive. But I make a lot of accusations. I speculate a lot, and it just reinforces that speculation that I had at the time. I think I'm right about just about everything about that day and what happened. But anyway, that's what I think. Naturally, I think I'm right about everything, Valeria.
That's true, Darren. You're right about everything. All the time.
That was sarcasm.
All the time.
You couldn't see her face, but hey,
Yes.
next story.
Senator Holly.
Holly.
Okay, Senator Holly says General Honoree has no business leading any review of the January 6th incident.
Yeah, okay, so this is General Honoree. Toxic Masculinity. Weekdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.